All right, let's talk about the future of crypto. Because by 2026, two massive forces are set to completely collide and reshape everything we think we know. One is a very deliberate, coordinated plan, and the other, well, that's more like an economic tidal wave. So let's get right into it. Okay, so here's the big question we're tackling today. Are we looking at a future defined by a massive crackdown or a huge comeback? You see, on one side, you have this global regulatory effort that is tightening its grip like never before. But on the other, there's a looming economic crisis that could just force a historic flood of money into the system. So, which one wins out? First up, let's tackle the most definite, most concrete thing happening right now, this synchronized global regulatory push. And look, this isn't some far-off theory or speculation. The rules are already written, the deadlines are set, and believe me, the engine is already running. At the very heart of all this is a framework called CARF. The easiest way to think about it is like the central nervous system for a whole new era of crypto tax transparency. It's basically an agreement between dozens of countries to make sure that no matter where you trade, your home country's tax authority is going to get the data. Now, what's really wild about this timeline is just how fast it's all happening. We're not talking about some distant future here. 2026 is the first major capture year. That's when exchanges start collecting a full year of your data under these brand new super strict rules. And then by 2027, that data starts flying across borders, connecting exchanges to tax offices all over the world. So what does this actually mean for you? Well, it means that if you're a tax resident in the UK, the EU, or any of the other participating nations, your exchange is now required to put together this super detailed annual report of everything you do, every single trade, every transfer, and send it directly to your tax authority. The era of ambiguity, yeah, that's officially coming to an end. But just as those regulatory walls are getting higher, a completely opposite force is building. And this one isn't about policy choices. Nope. This is about a math problem so huge that it could force governments to just open the liquidity floodgates, whether they want to or not. And this brings us to the core dilemma, the huge problem facing the US Treasury and really the whole global financial system. Analysts have a name for it. They call it the Debt Refinancing wall, and it represents a potential fiscal crisis on a scale that's hard to even wrap your head around. That number right there, $18 trillion. That is the mind-boggling amount of U.S. government debt that has to be refinanced by the end of 2026. To put that into perspective, that's like 2/3 of all the U.S. debt out there, all coming due in a very, very short window. Now here's the really crucial part. This isn't new spending. This is old debt, stuff that was taken out when interest rates were practically zero. Trying to roll that over at today's much higher rates could cause the interest payments on the national debt to just explode, making them totally unsustainable. This creates what economists call a fiscal dominance trap. It's a situation where the government's debt is so big, the central bank is forced to keep rates low just to stop a default, even if that means letting inflation rip. And that right there is the whole liquidity argument in a nutshell. To avoid a massive debt crisis, the only real path forward might be for the Federal Reserve to cut rates and pump huge amounts of money into the system to make the debt affordable no matter what inflation is doing. And this slide just shows you exactly why this is so important for crypto. Historically, there is no major asset on planet Earth that has been more sensitive to changes in global money supply than Bitcoin. It's almost a perfect correlation. When central banks print more money, Bitcoin's price tends to follow. You could almost say it's the ultimate liquidity sensor. So, okay, we've got these two epic competing stories, the crackdown versus the comeback. But as compelling as they both are, the actual market data right here, right now, it's telling a much more complicated and frankly, a much more skeptical story. You've got some of the sharpest analysts out there, people like Marcus Thielen, who are pointing to some really clear signals, things like super low trading volumes and a real lack of new retail investors coming in. And they're saying, hey, despite the big macro story, the market's internal health right now looks weak. So here's the conflict, laid out plain and simple. The macro bulls are looking at the global money supply and that huge debt wall, and they're saying the Fed has no choice but to print. But the market bears are looking at the actual charts, the weak trading volumes, the institutional money pulling back, and they're getting nervous. It's a classic battle between the big picture story and what's happening on the ground today. So what happens when an unstoppable force, that mathematical need for more money, crashes into an immovable object, which is global regulation. Well, the market doesn't just break, it splits. It evolves into two completely distinct parallel universes. You see, these incredible pressures are forcing the entire crypto world to change. So instead of it being one big monolithic market, what we're actually seeing is the emergence of two separate lanes, and each one caters to a totally different kind of user with very different priorities. The first lane, let's call it the regulated lane. It's becoming safer, easier to use, and it's deeply connected to traditional finance. This is the world of ETFs, of compliant exchanges, the whole nine yards. The second lane is the crypto native lane, and that's where the original spirit of crypto, privacy, decentralization, self-sovereignty, that's where it continues to live on and thrive. And here's the most important takeaway. It's not a zero-sum game. Both of these lanes can grow and be incredibly successful at the same time. The regulated lane is probably going to attract enormous institutional money that's looking for safety and compliance. Meanwhile, the crypto native lane will grow by serving all the people who value privacy and control, especially as global monitoring gets more intense. So, with all that said, where does that leave you? In this new, divided landscape, what is the one thing that truly matters? In a market that's splitting and getting more specialized, the ability to understand and operate in both of these lanes, well, that's no longer just a innate skill to have. It's the essential advantage. The game is getting way more complex, and the only way to navigate it is with versatile knowledge. And what does that actually mean? It means getting your hands dirty with the fundamentals. It means really learning how DeFi works, mastering the responsibility of holding your own keys, properly managing risk, and analyzing data on chain so you can find your own signals. And crucially, it means knowing the new tax and compliance rules inside and out. That's the new baseline for anyone who's serious about this space. As this brand new world takes shape right before our eyes, the critical question isn't just about what you're going to invest in, it's about how you're going to participate. Are you going to stick to the regulated, institution-friendly lane or the crypto-native one? Or will you learn to navigate both? The future is here, and the real question is, which path will you take?